The transit station of Keld 9 was built to handle crowds so large that no single species could claim it as home. Light panels glowed along curved ceilings, ships arrived and left every minute, and voices in 100 languages blended into a constant hum. Travelers moved with purpose, eyes fixed on schedules, contracts, or family waiting on distant worlds. In all that movement, it was easy for someone small and quiet to disappear. She sat near the edge of a wide corridor where the floor lights dimmed and the noise softened just a little. Her frame was thin, her skin pale with faint patterns that marked her species. She kept her limbs folded close, trying to take up as little space as possible. A worn travel cloak covered most of her body, not for warmth, but to hide the marks that made others look away. She had learned long ago that being unseen was safer than being noticed. Around her, signs flashed offers for labor contracts, colony transfers, and research postings. Every announcement promised opportunity, purpose, and progress. None of them were meant for her. She had checked. Many times, her species name was always missing, quietly removed from the lists as if it had never belonged there. She watched groups pass by. Some were families, their young clinging to them as they moved toward boarding gates. Others were workers, laughing loudly, already talking about their next assignment. Now and then, recruiters stopped travelers to make offers. Their eyes slid over her every time, stopping just short of her face, as if an invisible wall stood between her and the rest of the galaxy. She lowered her gaze and whispered the words she had repeated for years, soft enough that no one else could hear. "No one wants me." Saying it made the truth feel steady, like something solid she could lean on. Hope, she had learned, hurt more than silence. Her species had once been valuable. Long before she was born, they had been created to serve a role that mattered. They were planners, listeners, and stabilizers, able to sense patterns in living systems that others missed. But the galaxy changed. Faster tools were invented. Sharper minds were engineered. Her people were labeled slow, emotional, inefficient. One by one, the contracts ended. The stations closed their doors. The colonies moved on. Now her kind drifted from place to place, tolerated but never welcomed. Not dangerous enough to remove, not useful enough to keep. She shifted slightly as a transport roared overhead, the wind tugging at her cloak. Her stomach tightened with hunger, but she ignored it. Hunger was familiar, so was waiting. Waiting for a notice that would never appear, waiting for someone to say her name and mean it. Time passed in small pieces. The lights changed tone, marking the station's artificial cycle. Fewer travelers moved through the corridor now, and the air felt heavier, tired. She wondered how much longer she could stay before security asked her to move along again. They never arrested her. That would require effort and paperwork. They simply told her she did not belong in one place too long. She had just begun to gather her things when she noticed him. At first, she thought he was just another traveler. Tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in simple work clothes with the marks of long use. A human. There were many humans in the station, though they stood out in small ways. They walked with a certain ease, as if the galaxy annoyed them but did not intimidate them. Most passed her without a glance. This one did not. He slowed as he walked, his steps uneven, as if he were thinking hard about something else. His eyes moved across the corridor, scanning signs and gates, then stopped. They settled on her. She felt the familiar tension rise in her chest. Humans were known for strong reactions. Some were kind, others were not. She pulled her cloak tighter and looked down, preparing herself for dismissal or worse, curiosity that would turn into discomfort. But he did not speak right away. He simply stood there a few steps away, holding a small cargo case at his side. His expression was not sharp or judging. It looked puzzled, concerned. He cleared his throat softly, as if unsure whether he was allowed to interrupt her existence. "Hey," he said. The word startled her. She flinched before she could stop herself. No one had addressed her directly in days. "Yes." Her voice came out quiet, rough from disuse. He shifted his weight, clearly uncomfortable. "Sorry, I didn't mean to scare you. You've been sitting here a while." "Are you waiting for someone?" Not because it was funny, but because it was painful in a dull, familiar way. "Because there is nowhere else," she said. For a moment, the noise of the station seemed to fade. The human looked at her as if he had expected a different answer, one that fit more easily into his understanding of things. "That doesn't seem right," he said. She shrugged, a small movement. "It is how it is." Still, something in his tone made her answer before she could stop herself. "Lyra," she said. "Lyra," he repeated, testing the sound. "I'm Jonah." She thought about lying. It would be easier, but lying required effort, and she was tired. "3 cycles," she said. His eyes widened. "3, that's a long time." "So I do not cause trouble." That's not okay. Because of the station schedule. Long story, point is I've got time. She had spent so long being invisible that being seen felt like standing in bright light after darkness. Eventually, Jonah spoke again. You know, he said, humans have a habit. We don't always notice the rules everyone else follows. Sometimes we ignore them. And sometimes that's how things change. He said he would, but when Lyra woke from a light, uneasy sleep near the corridor wall, he was still there. Not standing close, not watching her, but sitting a short distance away with his back against a pillar, reading something on a small screen. He looked tired, like someone who had been awake longer than planned, yet there was no sign of regret on his face. She noticed him before he noticed her. That alone felt strange. When he finally looked up, his expression softened. Morning, he said, as if mornings meant the same thing to everyone, even in a station that never truly slept. Is it? She asked quietly. He smiled a little. Station morning, lights change color, food places reopen. People pretend it's a fresh start. I cannot pay you. She swallowed. You don't have to, Jonah said, but it's there if you want it. When she finished, he nodded once as if something inside him had settled. Thank you, she said. You're welcome, he replied. That's how that works. He stood and approached a nearby information terminal. After a moment, he frowned at the screen. That's odd. We are archived. The companies, the planners. That's what makes it worse. That's not the point, the official replied. Transit zones are for travelers. This was how it always went. Calm words, firm rules, no room to exist. Jonah glanced at her, then back at the official. Where is this holding area? I see. I'll live. You don't know that, the official replied. Jonah met his gaze. I know enough. I know what I saw. Someone sitting alone in a place full of people. If I do not, they will notice. For now, care when it is inconvenient. Lyra stood still for a long time, listening to the faint hum of the station through the walls. The door was closed, properly closed. No one had slammed it. No one had locked it from the outside. That alone made her uneasy. She had learned to sleep lightly, always ready to move, always ready to be told she had stayed too long. She sat on the edge of the bed and pressed her hands against the fabric. It was firm but not cold, clean, meant for someone to rest, not just wait. Her chest tightened and she forced herself to breathe slowly. This is temporary, she reminded herself. Humans helped, but humans also moved on. One cycle, the official had said. One cycle was not a future, it was just a pause. Still, when she lay down, she slept more deeply than she had in months. When she woke, the lights had shifted again. She washed, careful with the unfamiliar controls, and adjusted her cloak. For a moment, she wondered if Jonah would come back at all. The thought surprised her. She had already begun to expect him. A soft knock came at the door. She froze. It's me, Jonah said from the other side. If that's okay. He stayed standing until she gestured awkwardly toward the single chair. They drank in silence for a while. The warmth spread through her slowly, easing a tightness she had not realized she was carrying. What happens now? She asked. Jonah leaned back in the chair. Now we wait for my ship. Engine inspection, couple of days. He told her about his work, moving supplies between developing colonies, fixing problems no one else wanted because the routes were long and the pay was low. He spoke plainly, without pride or shame, as if it was simply what he did. She told him small things at first, how her people marked time, how they listened to living systems, not just machines, how her mother used to hum when she worked. He listened, really listened, not like someone collecting information, but like someone building a picture. Other humans passed by the door sometimes. Some nodded at Jonah. A few looked inside, curious. One woman stopped and frowned. You bringing strays aboard now? She asked, half joking. Jonah did not laugh. I bring people aboard, he said. The woman looked at Lyra again, then shrugged and walked away. That night Jonah stayed longer. The station lights dimmed and the noise softened. He stood near the door, shifting his weight like he was thinking hard about something. My ship cleared inspection, he said. Lyra's heart sank. That is good, she said automatically. It is, he agreed. We leave tomorrow. I will go to the holding area before then. The word echoed in her mind. He took a slow breath. Come home with me. Humans don't have a rule against inviting someone to live with them. I want you because you shouldn't be alone. But we regret not helping a lot more. Quiet arguments between Jonah and officials who did not like his calm refusal to back down. Word spread fast. an archived species boarding a human ship by invitation. Some watched with disbelief, others with quiet interest. When they reached the dock, Lyra froze at the sight of the ship. It was not large, but it was solid, worn, lived in. Jonah placed a hand on the control panel and the ramp extended. She hesitated at the edge. "You can still say no," he said. She looked back at the station, at the endless corridors, the places where she had waited and whispered to herself. Then she looked at the ship, at the open door. She took a step forward. Inside, the air smelled different, cleaner, warmer. The space felt personal, not public. Jonah showed her a small cabin. "This is yours," he said. "Mine?" she asked. "Yeah," he said. "Everyone deserves a door they can close." Lyra whispered goodbye, not to the place, but to the version of herself who had believed she was unwanted. Jonah guided the ship into open space. Stars spread before them, endless and bright. "Welcome home," he said. For the first time, the words did not feel like a lie. Earth was louder than Lyra expected, not in sound alone, but in life. The planet felt busy in a way no station ever had. From the moment Jonah's ship entered orbit, her senses reacted. She felt layers of movement below, air currents, water flows, the slow, steady rhythm of forests, the sharp patterns of cities. It was overwhelming, like hearing too many voices at once. She sat very still in the co-pilot seat, hands folded, breathing carefully. "You okay?" Jonah asked, glancing at her. "There is a lot," she said honestly. He smiled. "Yeah, Earth does that to people, even humans." Human officials. Their uniforms were simple, their expressions curious rather than cold. Jonah stepped out first, speaking calmly, explaining who she was and why she was there. Lyra stayed close, her cloak drawn tight, old habits held firm. One official, a woman with gray hair and kind eyes, approached slowly. "Welcome to Earth," she said. "You must be Lyra." "We don't get many guests from archived classifications," the woman continued. "That doesn't mean you're not welcome." Jonah showed her the small living space assigned to them. Separate rooms, shared kitchen, windows that looked out on trees. Lyra stood at the window for a long time, watching leaves move in the wind. She could feel them faintly, like distant thoughts. Over the next days, humans came to meet her, not crowds, small groups. Scientists, environmental planners, cultural liaisons. They asked questions, but not the kind she was used to. Not "what can you do for us?" but "how does this feel?" and "what do you think?" She closed her eyes and reached outward, sensing the patterns she had been taught to feel since childhood. "Because the systems are stressed," she said slowly. "Not broken. You try to force them into balance instead of listening to how they want to heal." Machines hummed, trying to regulate water flow. The plants struggled anyway. Lyra stepped carefully into the mud, removed her cloak, and placed her hands into the water. She did not command. She listened. Then she spoke, guiding the humans to adjust the flow, to remove one structure, to leave another alone. It felt wrong to them at first. It went against their models. But slowly the water settled, the plants straightened. Life responded. The humans watched in silence. "This was documented," one whispered later. "Your species was designed to do this." Humans compared records from old council archives with what Lyra demonstrated. Patterns emerged. Her species had not failed the galaxy. The galaxy had stopped listening. Jonah watched it all quietly, pride and concern mixing in his expression. One night, as they sat on the balcony watching Earth's sky darken, he spoke. "They're going to want more of you," he said. "Advice, help. Maybe even relocation programs." Places once written off showing signs of recovery. Questions followed. At a Galactic assembly session, a delegate finally asked the question out loud. Why did humans succeed where others failed? Her legs trembled, but she held her ground. "We were never obsolete," she said. "We were patient, we listened, that is all." After the session, messages arrived from scattered members of her species. Few remained, hidden across systems, living quietly, believing themselves forgotten. They had heard. Lyra read their words late into the night. Fear, hope, disbelief. "Are we truly welcome?" one message asked. She took a long time before replying. "Yes," she wrote, "but not because of what we can do. Because of who we are." He had invited one person home. He had not expected a future to follow. Earth changed slowly after that, not just its land, but its place in the galaxy. Humanity became known not as conquerors or traitors, but as listeners, the ones who asked, "Who did we forget?" Now the galaxy was learning to listen. Years passed, but Lyra still remembered the transit station clearly. The dim lights, the cold floor, the way she had folded herself inward, trying to take up less space in a universe that did not seem to notice her. Memory did not fade, but it no longer hurt. It had become a reminder of how far everything had come. The Galactic Assembly Chamber was full. Delegates from dozens of worlds filled the curved seats, their colors, shapes, and voices blending into a low, constant sound. Screens hovered in the air, showing live feeds from restored planets across the galaxy. Oceans that had once been gray now reflected blue light. Forests spread across land once marked as lost. Atmospheres stabilized where storms had raged for centuries. At the center of the chamber stood Lyra. She did not wear her old cloak anymore. She wore simple clothing made for her comfort, not to hide her. Her posture was straight, calm. She was no longer trying to disappear. Behind her, a small group stood together. Humans, members of her own species, scientists, planners, listeners, not ranked by status but by purpose. A delegate from an old, powerful species spoke first. "These results are undeniable," they said, "but they change the balance. Your methods require trust, cooperation. That is risky." "It is only risky if you believe control is the same as safety," she said. Murmurs spread through the chamber. Another delegate leaned forward. "Your species was once classified as inefficient, too slow, too emotional. It is a different kind of strength." "Because leaving her behind felt wrong," he said. "And humans don't do well when something feels wrong. We lose sleep. We ask questions. We make problems for systems that don't care." Slowly at first, then faster, archived classifications were reviewed. Forgotten species were contacted, not with contracts but with invitations, not demands but questions, not all accepted. Some had learned to survive alone. Some no longer trusted anyone. Humans did not force the issue. "We'll be here," they said, "if you want to talk." Not as a symbol, not as a tool, but as a guide. She traveled to damaged worlds, sometimes with Jonah, sometimes with others. Each place had its own rhythm, its own pain. She listened. She taught humans how to listen too. Jonah never stopped being a cargo officer. He still flew routes others avoided. He still fixed problems that paid little and mattered a lot. The only difference was that now, when he landed somewhere new, people recognized the human symbol on his ship. "Oh," they would say, "you're one of the listeners." A place where Jonah could sit quietly and pretend, sometimes, that the galaxy was not watching. One evening, as they walked through a park filled with human children and visiting species, Jonah spoke. "Do you ever wish I hadn't stopped that day?" he asked. Lyra considered the question carefully. "No," she said, "but I wish I had believed sooner that someone could." "Me too." It was from a young member of her species, newly arrived on a human settlement. "They asked me what I wanted to do," the message said. "No one has ever asked me that before." Not official, not written into law, just spoken, human standard inclusion. It meant that no one would be dismissed without being heard. That usefulness would not be the first question asked. That worth was assumed, not earned. Some mocked it, others adopted it. Enough did. On the anniversary of her arrival on Earth, Jonah found Lyra standing alone near the landing field, watching ships arrive. "Thinking about the station?" he asked gently. "Yes," she admitted. "Any regrets?" It was not to the galaxy. And humanity, flawed and stubborn and kind in inconvenient ways, stood beside her, not because she was needed, but because she was chosen. The galaxy would remember many things about humans: their persistence, their creativity, their refusal to accept simple answers. But most of all, it would remember this: